Have you ever wondered why some people pray, wait for years, and nothing happens, while others seem to receive everything effortlessly? It almost feels unfair, doesn't it? But here is the paradox. Life is not about who receives first, but about who perseveres when no one is watching. And what if I told you that there is an ancient secret preserved in a biblical story that reveals how to transform waiting into power and silence into victory? Many people think that faith means feeling secure all the time. But the truth is counterintuitive. True faith grows precisely when the heart feels tight, when pain insists on lingering, and when tears seem to speak louder than any prayer. It is in this barren ground that the greatest lessons of courage, patience, and surrender are born, lessons that can completely transform the way you face your own life and your own seasons of waiting. And it is exactly here that the story of Hannah enters, a woman who endured humiliation, pain, and silence, yet discovered something few people notice. God's true answer comes after inner peace, not before it. Today, you will discover how this narrative is not only about ancient miracles, but about transforming your pain, your waiting, and your prayer into living purpose, something you can apply today. In your own life, there are moments in life when prayer does not come out through the mouth. It comes out through the chest. A person tries to speak, but the voice locks. The knot in the throat tightens, and all that remains is the heart beating strongly before the silence of God. It is a strange pain. Because there is faith, there is hope, but there is also waiting. And waiting is exhausting. Waiting without an answer is even more exhausting. Those who have been through this know. It is not a lack of prayer. It is an excess of feeling. Many people carry this pain in silence, believing they must be strong all the time. They pray by day, they pray by night, but it feels as though the heavens have gone silent. Prayer becomes an internal whisper, almost a desperate thought, the kind that only God can hear. This is the point where faith is truly tested, because persevering when everything is fine is easy. Difficult is continuing to believe when the answer does not come, and it is exactly here that an ancient, biblical story begins to make sense in an almost uncomfortable way. Because the Bible does not speak only of quick miracles. It speaks of long waiting, repeated humiliation, and of a woman who prayed so much that she could no longer speak. Her name was Hannah, and perhaps, without realizing it, her story resembles yours far more than you imagine. Hannah appears in the story as an ordinary woman, the kind we could find in any era. She was devout, God-fearing, someone who did everything the right way. Yet she carried a deep pain, barrenness. In that time, this was not merely a physical condition. It was a social mark, almost a label of failure. Hannah's waiting was not only for a child. It was for dignity, for an answer, for meaning. She was married to Elkanah, a man who truly loved her, and this makes everything even more complex. Because, you see, being loved did not spare her from pain, nor did it shield her from humiliation. Peninnah, the other wife, had children, and used this as a weapon, provoking Hannah year after year. Hannah's faith was real, but the wound was real as well. And this is where many people identify with her. Because loving and being loved does not solve everything. There is a dangerous idea that those who have faith do not suffer. And the story of Hannah dismantles this immediately. It creates space to understand that pain does not invalidate faith, and faith does not automatically eliminate pain. Sometimes the two walk together in silence, shaping the heart. And when this suffering is repeated for a long time, it begins to generate something even deeper, something that goes beyond visible sorrow. Hannah's humiliation did not happen only once, and that makes all the difference. It repeated itself year after year, like a wound that barely heals before being opened again. Peninnah provoked her precisely where it hurt the most, reminding her of what she did not have and deeply desired. It was not a physical attack. It was emotional, silent, constant. And this kind of pain is usually the hardest to explain. Hannah wept, fell silent, and moved forward as she could. Not because she was weak, but because she was tired. There is an exhaustion that does not come from the body. It comes from the soul, from the long waiting, from the promise that seems never to be fulfilled. Many people live something similar today, looking around and seeing others advance, achieve, celebrate, while their own life seems stuck in the same place. When humiliation lingers, it begins to speak to the heart. A person starts to question whether God truly sees, whether prayer still makes sense, whether faith is worth it. This is the danger of repeated pain. It tries to rewrite the identity of the one who suffers. And it was exactly at this point, when the humiliation was no longer only external, that something inside Hannah began to move in a different way, despite the love of Elkanah. Hannah felt that no one truly understood her pain. He would say, "Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" Trying to comfort her, but his words could not reach what was in her heart. How often does this happen to us? People close to us want to help, but end up minimizing our pain without realizing it. Hannah's frustration reminds us that loving is not the same as understanding pain. That is not understood corrodes silently. Hannah could be surrounded by affection and still feel the emptiness. It is a human paradox. It is possible to be loved and yet feel alone at the same time. And it is precisely in this space between love and incomprehension that faith is tested. Because it is easy to keep hope when everyone understands. But the true challenge is to believe when no one else can see the depth of your struggle. This kind of situation teaches you something important about empathy and patience. Hannah shows us that not every word of comfort reaches the heart of the one who suffers. Sometimes silent presence alone is enough. And when pain is long, silent, and continuous, the heart begins to seek other ways of communication, other channels of hope. Hannah did not need words. Her heart spoke on its own. She prayed in silence, with her soul laid bare, without her lips moving. It is striking how, so often, our communication with God does not require sound, but sincerity. How many times do we find ourselves whispering requests only within ourselves, hoping that someone will understand? Hannah's silence shows that true faith does not depend on what others see or understand. And then comes the challenge. Eli, The priest sees her and thinks she is drunk. What an uncomfortable situation. How many times in life are we misunderstood precisely when we are being most sincere? The lesson here is clear. People may judge incorrectly, may minimize or criticize, but God knows the truth of the heart. It is a powerful reminder that our surrender does not need to be validated by others. Hannah teaches us that communication with God transcends the visible and the audible. He understands every sigh, every silent tear, every prayer that no one hears. And it is at this point, when it seems that no one sees, that faith grows stronger, preparing the heart for the turning point that is about to come. When Eli realized that Hannah was not drunk and declared, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant what you have asked of him," something shifted within her heart. It was not merely external validation, but the recognition that her silence and her faith carried value. Many times, a word of encouragement, even a simple one, can completely transform the energy of someone who is already on the verge of giving up. Hannah rises, eats, and her face is no longer downcast. The change did not come from the moment the answer arrived, but from the peace that began to dwell within her heart. It is a powerful reminder. Inner serenity comes before the miracle. In everyday life, we face situations where waiting feels endless, but faith that is renewed, even before the answer, gives us the strength to keep going. This inner turning point is not magical. It is the result of trust and surrender. Hannah shows that the true miracle begins within the heart. When a person chooses to release the weight of despair and connect fully with God, and when peace enters, it makes room for the next steps, those tied to promise and surrender. To become possible. Hannah makes a silent yet firm vow. If God grants her a son, she will give him back to the Lord. It is a gesture that requires courage, because loving is always risky, and surrendering what one desires most requires even greater faith. How many times in life are we called to let go of something precious in order to allow a greater purpose to unfold? Hannah shows us that true surrender is born from trust. Deep down, there is fear. Waiting so long for a blessing and then giving it away is not easy. It is almost a paradox. She desires it, yet must release it. And it is precisely within this paradox that the maturity of faith is revealed. Today, we can apply this in small actions, making room for opportunities. Releasing control over projects, people, or dreams. Believing that something better is still to come. In surrendering, Hannah does not lose. She transforms her blessing into purpose. Every act of surrender is also a step of learning, of strengthening the heart and the soul. Life teaches that what truly belongs to us is not lost, because conscious surrender opens the way to a result greater than we could imagine. And it is precisely this step that prepares the ground for the fulfillment of God's promise. The miracle finally happens. Hannah becomes pregnant, and Samuel is born, the son for whom she prayed with such faith and perseverance. The long waiting, the humiliation, the silence, and the silent prayer were not forgotten. God remembers every tear, every sigh of the heart, even when no one else notices. It is a reminder that divine faithfulness does not fail. Even when human time seems far too slow, and Hannah not only receives the blessing, but faithfully fulfills her vow, dedicating Samuel to the Lord. She demonstrates that faith is not passive. It is active, responsible, transformative. In everyday life, this translates into actions that are consistent with our words and promises. When we honor our commitments, even in small things, we train the heart to trust fully in the outcomes that are still to come. As a reward, God grants even more. 5 additional children bless Hannah's family. The story shows that perseverance and surrender create a cycle of abundance and purpose. Every challenge overcome, every sincere prayer, every step of faith contributes to a legacy that goes beyond personal expectation. And it is at this point that the narrative begins to move toward its conclusion, preparing the viewer to reflect on their own life. The miracle finally happens. Hannah becomes pregnant, and Samuel is born, the fruit of her faith, silent prayer, and perseverance. But before that, there was pain, humiliation, and long waiting, moments that could have discouraged any heart. And it is exactly here that the reflection arises. How have you been dealing with your own silent pains? Every tear, every sigh, every moment of silence can be a training that strengthens the heart and shapes faith. The secret is realizing that God never forgets, even when human time seems far too slow. And that divine faithfulness is always greater than we imagine. Hannah not only received the blessing, but also offered Samuel to the Lord, showing that true faith is active, responsible, and transformative. And what if today you could transform your own silent prayer into purpose? Imagine releasing what you desire most with confidence, knowing that the reward will come complete and at the right time. Every small step of perseverance, every action consistent with your commitments, strengthens the heart and prepares the ground for greater outcomes. And the question that remains is this: will you allow your waiting to become your burden or your strength? Hannah's reward did not stop with Samuel. God granted more children and established a cycle of abundance and purpose. The lesson is clear. Perseverance, surrender, and trust create a legacy that goes beyond expectations. Now, think about your own life. What steps can you take today to act in faith, transform pain into purpose, and write your own story of victory? Leave your reflection in the comments, share your experience, and inspire others who are also waiting for answers. And do not forget, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue receiving stories that will touch your heart, strengthen your faith, and show that waiting is always worth it.